Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 12th SIG release meeting. My name is Jeremy, and I'll be the host today. Just a quick reminder before we get started that this meeting is covered by the CNCF Code of Conduct. So by participating, you agree to abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. This will also be recorded and available on YouTube. So fair warning that you'll be on the internets. All right, Marco has dropped the agenda into the chat. Thank you, Marco. We will go ahead and kick it off. If anybody would like to be the note taker today, I would greatly appreciate somebody taking notes. And
I can do it.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we can jump into our recurring topics. Is there anybody that is new to this meeting that would like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, I am new to this meeting. Hi everyone, I am Nitish. Currently, I work mostly for the SIG contributes comps, in which I'm working currently for the Spotlight blog and the SIG release. And I'm also the LFX mentee under Marco as a mentor and Carlos as a mentor, which will be building Golang library and CLI2 for the SIG release. And this is the first meeting for the version 1.29 I'm attending, and pretty much excited for how this release goes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Sridham. I was part of this call last week, I believe the week before that, like the last call. Yeah, I'm basically working with the LWKD team the last week in Kubernetes development newsletter, along with Josh, Noah. And I've also been selected as a shadow for the enhancements team for the 1.29 release. Yeah, looking forward to be a part of this call.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Hello there, I'm Rudraksh. I'm just exploring the CNCF world and excited about the Kubernetes and trying to explore. Just hopped into the meeting. I'm looking forward to learn and contribute ahead. Thank you so much.
That's great. Welcome. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, with that, we will jump into our sub-project updates. Veronica, you have a new proposed structure for release engineering updates.
Yes, hello. Sorry I put it very last minute, but so yesterday I had a chat with Adolfo and Carlos. All of the leads were invited, but like this context for everyone else. And we decided that after going through the results of the release manager and release manager associate survey, a piece of feedback was that people usually don't know what where to start working on. So we came up with the idea of, instead of having a single release engineering bundled update, we should start having a dedicated slots, asking people to provide specific updates, for example, about OBS, about the signatures, the SBOMs and stuff like that, and then general. It's very similar to what we currently have, but we at this point we rely on people like Marco, who is very good at giving updates of OBS, for example. But some of us are not that good at providing context for other things, you know. So sometimes the updates that we provide are just one sentence or one-liners that not even all the leads are aware of. It's just people who are working on that specific issue. Which, for example, happened a lot with the signatures and SBOM stuff, the supply chain security stuff that Carlos and Adolfo were working on earlier this year. And since they work together, they had a bunch of shared context, but that no one else knew. Yeah, and similar to what happened with the OBS stuff, that Marco was working very fast, which was great, but then everyone else felt a bit lost. So for probably not this meeting, or this meeting will be our first imperfect imperfect attempt, but I will, as an action item, I will set like a new template for, I will add this structure for a template in the agenda to go through the recurring topics. As I said, right now it would be OBS packages, it would be release codes and patches, it would be supply chain security and miscellaneous area, because another thing that was mentioned in our meeting yesterday was that a lot of people who want to contribute, this is not just the release managers and release manager associates, but like people who are very interested in helping us, so sometimes are not even aware of the things that we do in the team, and it's not their fault because we usually tell people, oh, attend the meetings and read the code, but like the code base is huge at this point and very distributed and with a lot of lost context. So there's a bunch of work that we need to do that doesn't belong to a specific project, that we need cleanup in the repos, we need update in the, not in the documentation, but also in the code, things like that, that we even forget about. So having those as updates, having a bit more of structure without having a full project management effort or anything, just being more structured about it. We think that it will be better for everyone. So yeah, so with that, let's move on with the current format, and let's keep in mind for the next time.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that'll be really, really useful going forward. Marco, do you want to do the release engineering updates?
Yeah, first of all, thanks to Veronica for taking care of this. I think this is going to be helpful because we often forget like what's going on. Like a week is a long period. If there's a lot of moving parts, it's hard to like keep everything in mind to provide an update. But while we are there, I try to prepare like what has been going on. And the first thing is Go updates. We updated to 121.1 and 120.8. Thanks to Carlos for taking care of that. Go update to 1.21 is still ongoing. There's still some pieces that need to be done. Thanks a lot to Carlos and Chef for dealing with that, for dealing with basic which updates, to folks like Teams and Legit that are taking care of some other changes in 121 that might affect Kubernetes, so that we can eventually also backport this update to release branches. Another thing is kubepkg and Rapture are considered deprecated and will be removed after October patch releases. Sasha sent an email to mailing list, but it has been decided because we are now exclusively using OBS from October. We don't really need those tools. We don't need to maintain that. It's going to be easier to get rid of it. If you are aware that these tools are used anywhere, mainly kubepkg, please let us know so that we can migrate and that we can figure out the next steps. Speaking of open build service, projects for 129 are now in place. There's a Slack thread describing the process step by step. It is not really structured. There's going to be a proper documentation, of course, but it is like some guideline on how it looks like. So folks interested can take a look before we get like the proper docs in place. I shared the link or Zoom chat. Given patch releases, those are scheduled for tomorrow, and thanks to Veronica for volunteering to help with these releases. Reminder that we are freezing the legacy repositories with those patch releases. I have left a link in the notes. I am going also to share it on Zoom. Basically, the plan is that September is going to be the last patch releases that we are going to publish to the Google repos, to legacy ones. After that, all packages will be published only to OBS and to packages.cat.sio. And yeah, we had Open Build Service and Packages Get SIO introduction last week, and slides and recording are posted on the Release Management Slack channel if you want to take a look and see what we covered there. Any questions for me or anything to add?
Thanks for the update. A lot of stuff happening. Exciting.
Marco, sorry, Jeremy.
No.
Marco, do you have a specific, well, now that Nitish is formally helping, that's great. Welcome to the team. But other than that, do you have any specific open issues, no matter how big or small, that you would like to communicate for the community as a possibility to contribute?
Yeah, so I don't have specific issues like that I can like point to them right now, but I think I mentioned this before. We have a project board for that.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you find anything on project board that is like interesting to you, there are like 21 issues in the backlog right now. I will be taking care of those alpha, critical, urgent, and important issues. But other than that, everything that is beta, stable, or not marked, contributions are very welcome. I'm also happy to help. Please reach out and we will see how we can figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for a great question. It's nice to remind people that if there's anything you would like to work on, speaking of OBS, please reach out. There's plenty of work that needs to be done so we can make it work.
Do we think that it would be good to have, as part of the template updates, just a link for each of the specific?
Yes, I
project
will
boards?
add that. I was going to originally mention that, but I wanted to stop talking.
Like walking
So
through
I will
project
do-
boards takes a lot of time, but having them there so that they're quickly reachable from the notes, and if there's anything specific we want to talk about, we can look at them. I think, but having them there
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a reference would be.
Yeah, also because we don't want, sometimes since we are all mostly the release managers are in different time zones, etc. It's not always possible for all of us to attend a meeting, but
Mhm.
it's still necessary to provide updates. So with this format, we always encourage people to attend, but not if you don't necessarily come, the template should provide enough context and links and whatnot for people to know what to do next.
Awesome. Okay, any other questions about release engineering topics before we go to the release team? All right, sounds good. Do we have somebody from the release team that wants to lead the updates? I don't see Priyanka on the call. All right, well, for the recording, we'll just mention updates that Priyanka has put in here. The lead shadow onboarding is complete. Shadow selection is done for 129. Those are all done. We are scheduled to do our first alpha cut for 129 on Tuesday, 19th of September. We just confirmed the branch manager availability. Jim is on the call. Jim's going to be the branch manager for 129. Thanks for doing that, Jim. That'll be super awesome. The release calendar for 129 has been updated, pending release cut date timelines. And then the meetings have been scheduled. So it looks like everything for 129 is rolling down the pipe. Anything that anybody from the release team wants to add to that?
The one thing I'll just add is that I still need to come up with the patch cut timeline. There was some conversation around whether or not we needed the additional alpha cut, which sounded like we had +1. I think it was a 4th alpha cut because of the OBS integration. And so we're going to skip that. And then I just got to hack together the patch timeline. And then I think that that's the only thing that we're waiting on.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think we need the 4th alpha. Just as a +1 for me. Okay, Grace, you had a PR that's listed here, looking for additional reviews and comments on release team member removal. Do you want to mention anything about that, or is it just a call to action to go review?
Yeah, just a call to action. It's still discussion in the issue, but I want folks' opinion before I start drafting up the PR. But yeah, give it a look and like see if the process and the removal process makes sense.
Okay, so everybody take a look at that, please, and provide feedback. In the chat, Arnaud asked, quick question, there are no patch releases for November, right? And that is correct. There are no patch releases scheduled for November because of KubeCon and other things. All right, let's jump into our open discussion topics then. Arnaud, you have a trio of things here. Do you want to kick us off with the first one?
Yeah, hey, hi. Before we start, because I feel I'm gonna be the only person to talk for the next 20 minutes, is there like anyone to talk about something else before I start? Okay, good. So the first item is about the release bucket used by the project to serve all the binaries we built on each milestone. Historically, the bucket is named Kuberentes Release, and it's owned by Google, owned in the sense like it's created under a Google project, and we don't have a full access on that. So with the rollout of Fastly, we were able to shield that bucket with Fastly. So now we have the possibility to switch to a community-owned bucket. Main benefit is basically that help us have full control on how we establish life cycle or if object we release, so we can improve the cache efficiency done by Fastly. I think that's the main benefit. The other thing is like we have full control of all the binaries we release on each milestone, so we can do more things like improve signature, those kind of things. So I think I want to start the conversation about how we migrate from get release bucket to a community owned one. And if I'm not wrong, that's implying some change in the release tooling. So I think this is more like a call for action and get some consensus on how, if yes or no, we want to proceed, start to do that in 129 at least. It might be fast, and we are able to basically use the new bucket for 129 and deprecate the Google own one. So I'm not exactly sure about this. But that also implies some kind of communication and say we're going to deprecate that bucket, and we also want that the new bucket to be private, so we serve exclusively the object we release through Fastly. I think those are like the few technical elements we need to consider.
Yeah, so is it a good time to provide feedback?
It's more like questions. Yeah, this is like questions.
Yeah, so I agree with this change because I have been following this from the CKS infra part as well. I think this is going to be helpful. One thing that I have concerned that we had similar situation from OBS is what are we going to do with the existing data? For example, if we are going to start this from 1.29, then we are going to have like maybe 4 or 5 supported releases, for example, starting from 125 to 129. Are we planning on doing some backfilling of that new bucket that's going to allow users, like once we point to the new bucket? Like how is that exactly going to work? Like since when we switch to the new bucket, are we going to be able to access the old binaries that we have, and how is that going to be handled?
The backfill is very easy because the GCS protocol is literally, we can access to HTTPS. So we just backfill anything we release since 1.1 to the new bucket. And GCP as a service to do that automatically synchronization everywhere if we want. So we are not delayed the whole bucket, we just deprecate it. We literally say deprecation in the sense like we stop pushing, we stop doing release doing with that bucket, but we skip. I have, from the conversation I have with Google, they are not intending to delay that bucket. The only thing is to put that in read-only and just leave that by himself until traffic is dropped and people switch to the new community bucket. Ultimately, the idea is not to switch to the new bucket for the release, but switch to an endpoint, to our public endpoint that's going through Fastlane. So backfill is a matter of basically do air clone from one source to a destination, and we can do that automatically. So there's no problem for that. We even did that for, we have we did an experiment, I think 2 to 3 years ago, where we can new bucket and try to see how backfill would happen. It's working. There's no really issue about that. Because the signature of also those binary are not attached to the binary itself, like in the content registry, backfill is very easy. It's just a copy of the subject. I see my admin hand raised. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to add a few things to that, right? How long was DL.case.io GA for?
What do you mean GA for?
Like widely available for people to pull blobs from?
It's still available, and we are not.
No, I mean, how long? How many releases ago?
DL, I think more than 5 years, if I remember
5
correctly.
years.
Yeah, more than 5 years.
Well, in that case, it's fair to presume that you really shouldn't be pulling from the bucket. So if it disappeared tomorrow, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
I would.
I mean, when you say not be able to pull from the bucket.
As in, a simple example, let's say Google makes that bucket private, right? And you start getting 403s everywhere. That's fine. You shouldn't have been pulling it from that address in the first place. We gave you an address. It's been in our docs for the last 5 years. Every well-written installer should be pulling it from that URL as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so why don't we do that? I know it's a bit harsh, but yeah.
Oh, while we put the bucket private?
Yeah, you just make the bucket private, and that's it. When people start getting 403s and start complaining, we'll tell them, hey, you haven't read our docs for a long time. You're supposed to pull blobs from this address. Please use that instead.
No, we don't. The old bucket will stay public, and we are not going to shift it to private. That's the one thing we want to do, because that bucket also contains artifacts relate to CI, with that we're still using. I would say, for example,
all right.
so
you are
GIS
using
monitor
for other things, okay?
Yeah, like because the new bucket one, I think the idea is like for the new bucket, we want to keep object only related to the release. Unlike the old bucket where there were things related to the release and also relate to the CI. And we want to basically stop having that practice.
But don't we have like a K8 release-dev bucket for CI stuff?
Yeah, this is used for, I would say, for the version marker to push a hourly build where we push a specific version marker, but we are not publishing that for the release. And this is community owned. The idea is to basically, the official release have a community owned bucket, but we serve through Fastlane only.
Okay. I'm still not following now. You said there were some CI related assets in the main release bucket today.
Yeah, in the old release one.
Why can't that be moved to another bucket?
We can move that to another bucket. I think I'm focused on basically anything supported by the community for the moment.
Okay.
Anything related to CI is a follow-up conversation we can have. And I think that's going to be with SIG testing, not necessarily SIG release. Because then SIG is not responsible for anything related to CI at the moment.
All right, sounds good. But to be honest, the end goal is that bucket needs to disappear. If you're doing CI work, move your stuff somewhere else. And if you were pulling release assets from there, then you shouldn't be doing that for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add one thing to, I commented it in chat, but from our experience when doing migration, we actually found even in the community a lot of places where the bucket was used directly. I think it's safe to assume that this is the case for the community as well, since we have been doing that for a long time. So making it private or doing anything that might break stuff is probably not the best idea, but like trying to communicate it that we are like really encouraging people to use the LK at SIO instead is going to be more helpful. We just need to figure out like what's the proper outlet for doing that. This is the problem that we are reaching with OBS stuff as well, because we can share in the stuff like KDev, KAnnounce, and maybe social media, but that doesn't have the best reach. Like it is really hard to get to users and tell them, please use that instead.
Okay, I think there's like, we clearly have to basically do some kind of communication to the community and our user around that. Like there's need to be a deprecation notice publish or announce. I don't know how what's the right format for this, but definitely we need to communicate about this. I don't know. I think the question is like, do we want to basically do that in 129, or do we be more flexible and announce the deprecation in 129 and switch to the new bucket in 130?
So I don't know how fast it exactly works, but I think that underlying bucket does still better if you're using the LK SIO. Like, I don't know how complicated it will be, but maybe some transition period we can push to both buckets and like stop doing that after 2 releases, for example.
It's completely doable, because when you switch a bucket, we need to switch the bucket is one thing, but the complexity is to make sure KRL push, build and push I would say the binaries to the new bucket, and we start publish to the old one. I think this is like the technical transition we need to make sure. The question is like, are we confident to do that in one milestone, or do we want to play safe and do that in 2 milestones?
I guess maybe do it in 2 milestones, just to be safe. Like 1 milestone we introduce it, maybe other milestone deprecate the old one and like freeze it, and that's it.
Okay. Are we have consensus on this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, 2 milestones is nice. If that also includes contributors fixing SCI to pull things from the new place.
Okay.
Because the 3rd milestone can just make the bucket disappear.
Disappear in get release going away, or delay the entire bucket, or basically not use it because disappear. I'm not sure about the term.
Initially, when I say disappear, that could initially start with the bucket serving 403 as it is private. Then maybe in the future it's deleted entirely.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't delete from the get-go. Like your first intermediate step is make it private, so complain, so the people that are affected turn up and have an opportunity to fix things.
Okay.
Once you delete the
So I
bucket,
think it's fair.
I don't think there's no going back.
Okay, I think it's fair. We can do that. We can try to do that in 1 milestone. The one thing is just perhaps trying to identify what's required to do that from a release engineering perspective, come up with something and see what's happening, and plan all of this over 2 milestones. So we know once we have like confidence about what's the technical requirement with what are the technical requirements to do that transition, we can announce the freeze or the deprecation. And in 130, we start doing the release with the new bucket.
One question. Yeah, okay. We are using faster, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else has a question? I can hear you, Jeremy.
I muted myself because I was coughing. Sorry.
Okay.
Sounds like we've got general agreement on that. Do we want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of time concerns. All right, go for the next one.
You're right. So it also relates to how we do releases. Currently, we use a Google Home bucket, which is called Kubernetes Release Test, and we should migrate to a community-owned one for any release. The question is like, this one is kind of tricky because we have to do that at once. So we have to be fast, like between two release, whether it's like alpha 1 or alpha 2, we need to do try between those. So I'm like, how we want to do this.
And one question, do we know what do we have in that bucket? Like, are we only doing the cloud build jobs, or are we having anything else there?
Only the release manager can access that project and tell us what is inside the project. I have a like selection of permission, but I think the SIG release lead or the TL might have access to that project and tell us what is inside. The only thing I know is like we use Google Cloud Build to run this thing, but I don't know about permission and basically what is inside. So I'm curious about how we want to do that transition.
Yeah, I think I can access that project. We definitely use for like Google Cloud Build and such stuff. Maybe we can pair with these, try to figure out like what do we have, and like collect if there's anything. I'm definitely aware of another thing. This is secrets, like for a KMS with bunch of tokens and stuff like that. That would be have to transfer this survey. Another thing that might be there. Yeah, never mind. I think this is like the two critical things. I'm not sure. I will check if we have any buckets, but yeah.
Yeah, there are a few buckets in there. They don't look like many of them were modified fairly. They'll look like they were last modified kind of a while ago. So we can go through and do some analysis on that. I can help you do an inventory of the things that are in there. We can report back if that works for you.
Thank you. I think the first thing is like do an inventory of what is inside that project, and we can decide what are the next steps. That's like the one thing I'm looking for first, and like based on that we can see what's happening. I think Jing might be involved in this because as the branch manager, if we start doing this in 128, we might have some hiccups. So
yeah,
little warning to Jim.
Yeah. One other thing that just came to my mind to be careful are service accounts and stuff like that. Like the stuff that is giving permissions, like for signing, for publishing, for stuff like that, co-sign. That's something to care as well about.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where we have to look on how we do the transition, because we have multiple things tied together between Google infrastructure and community-owned infrastructure. So it's kind of tricky to figure out what's happening. So over time, we can uncover all those relationships, all those, I would say, permission relationship.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question about this?
Nope.
Okay, so my last topic is like the triage instance set up by SIG release. I'm wondering if we can shut it down.
I think so. I don't think we've used that in quite a while. I don't know if it's like nobody's actively maintaining that thing, right?
I'm not aware of someone maintaining that, so I'm curious about how basically the TL and the SIG leads feel about this. Like if no one is using, we just need to shut it down.
Yeah, I would tend to think that we can just shut it down, but let's start a thread in the SIG release Slack channel just to get anybody else to ping in if they're using it today, just so we can.
Okay.
This was a triage party instance, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that project also went through some cycles there. Like, I'm not sure if it is even maintained anymore. So yeah,
They did a release.
and
They did a release this week, so.
oh,
But the
okay.
question is the way you use that, because over time the release team switch away from the tooling and use GitHub boards or
Yeah.
GitHub project
Yeah.
to do triage and spend those kind of things. So I'm like, I don't think there's a value to keep it that around.
Yeah, I am
Yeah.
plus one on removing it.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're using private chats for our ready to releases, like private chat with bug triage team.
Okay. I think the question is because it's been a while since no one used that tool. Do we want to consider we use this tool for the incoming releases? If it's a yes, we need to identify owners of that tooling. So we have like basically a team to maintain that tooling, like bump the tags and so things like that.
I would guess the answer is we don't want to maintain it, but let's just put a call out and see if anybody is still using it, and then if so, then we'll figure that out. But I think we're going to tend to the answer that nobody's using it, and we don't have anybody that can maintain it for us right now.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
Is that
Right.
tool like even up? Because I'm getting some errors trying to access it.
No, I don't think I think it was like broken for a while, and I don't even had the time to look into it. That's why I'm like, I come to basically say, okay, if it's not up,
nobody's using it.
Let's just shut it down.
That sounds fine to me. So let's just do a quick call for anybody to say no, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna land on get rid of it.
Okay, that's it for me. So thank you, everyone.
All right.
And
thanks
thank you for
everybody.
bringing all these topics.
Yeah, these are really useful discussion points. All right, well, we are just about out of time, so we can go ahead and end a few minutes early unless anybody has a really quick thing they want to bring up. Otherwise, we'll give back 5 minutes and 4 minutes at this point, and people can have an evening or a lunch, whatever the time might be for you. All right. Have a great day,
Bye,
everybody. Bye.